right now. Let's go.
A lot of people are going to be saying that tomorrow. Go right now as they're watching their horse hopefully cross the finish line. Much like the Indianapolis 500, the Kentucky Derby is an annual rite of spring. 20 of the best 3-year-old horses in the world break from the gate at Churchill Downs on the first Saturday in May.
Our George Mallet spends a lot of time hanging out at racetracks and galloping horses. He's been spending a lot of time looking at the horses that will enter the gate early tomorrow morning. Let's go to the track.
Now fourth, now third, and about to be second from the backfield.
Let's start with a horse we Midwesterners can root for. Last year, Angel of Empire turned heads when he won his first race at Horseshoe, Indianapolis. The fleet-footed colt would go on to win the Risen Star Stakes and Arkansas Derby this year, both key prep races for the Kentucky Derby. After his Arkansas Derby win, his Indiana-based trainer, Brad Cox, was effusive.
Very impressed with this horse on how he run today. Came home quick, and he's a horse that, the longer the better. So, looking forward to getting him to the Kentucky Derby in 5 weeks.
Angel of Empire was not an expensive horse. Indiana-based trainer Tim Glishaw, who has won at the top level of horse racing, says when it comes to horses, money's less important than heart.
They don't know how much you paid for them.
Right.
And you can't, all the biometrics they do, they scope the horses, they take all the x-rays, make sure nothing's wrong. There's people that ultrasound their heart because they say the size of their heart. Well, that can't measure like heart, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you want to do it. And you just can't measure that. And there's always a chance for lower priced horses to go ahead and do well, and I'm a testimony of that. Not just me, there's plenty of others out there as well.
Which brings me to the horse I like, Derma Sotogake. This handsome steed with a distinctive white blaze down the middle of his face beat some of the best 3-year-olds in the world this spring at the UAE Derby in Dubai. He's been at Churchill Downs since shortly after that victory, galloping in the mornings with fellow Japanese contender Continuar. While the talented Japanese colts are impressing seasoned horsemen and women worldwide, Tim Glishaw says this year's Derby is more wide open than ever.
And the reason I say that's because I don't think there's going to be much pace. The horses that have won on the lead haven't gone very fast.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you're probably going to have to go faster than that. You normally have to go faster than that in a Derby, but there's no sprinters in there like in years past to press the pace. So I think it's going to be a very slow pace. That should favor the front runners. I don't know if any of those are good enough to win. So then you look at the horses that are going to be stalking and closing. And, there's 20 horses in the field. It all just depends on 100% on trip.
If pace makes the race and there is little pace to develop, Kentucky Derby 149 may be a good time to put a $2 win bet down on a horse with long odds or a name you like. How about this big, lanky gray steed uncoiling his massive stride on a recent Kentucky morning? Tappet Trice. Now that's a catchy name.
That's amazing.
This was so cool.
Now, here's the thing with Tappet Trice, though. He breaks really slowly from the gate. So I think that's going to set him back a little bit. I love Derma Sotogake. A couple qualifying statements. He's in the 17 post. No horse has ever won the Kentucky Derby from the 17 post. I find that meaningless. I mean, a lot of the wise guys think that's a big deal. The other thing is no horse has ever even made the board after winning the UAE Derby and coming to Churchill Downs. But this horse is so fast, and he likes the track now. He's been here galloping over the surface. He looks like a dancer. He's just floating that far above the sand.
There is something to that, too, when you're watching horses, the way that they run. It's not about just speed. It's about that kind of fluid motion, too, so it makes a difference.
Okay, so I've told you guys I'm not a handicapper.
Sure.
I'm a reporter. I ask questions. People give me answers. Somehow, though, I've elevated my status. I am now regarded as a handicapper.
Just own it, yeah.
So, example of this was yesterday on the Tony Kornheiser podcast. Tony Kornheiser quoted me when addressing questions to Andy Beyer, the creator of the Beyer Speed Figures. Let's listen to that.
A friend of our show is George Mallet. and he's a beautiful artist, and he's on television, and he loves horse racing, and he told me about Flightline before I'd ever heard the name last year. And he is on the Japanese horse, Derma Sotogake. Is that how it's pronounced? Are you on this horse?
I am.
Really?
I am. Well, for a couple of reasons, Tony. One, just on his own merit.
George Mallet must be so happy about this. We'll take a break. We'll come back with email and jingle. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
That was so cool.
I am really happy.
Can confirm, huh?
But so anyway, so my status is elevated. So tonight, I'm going to be handicapping the whole race on the Loyal Littles podcast with Chuck and Roxy. So I think that'll be available this weekend.
It probably helps too in your pick because that's a little bit of more merit behind that, right? Like when a guy like Andy Beyer is like, "Hey, I actually."
But Andy Beyer is, to be quoted in a conversation between Tony Kornheiser and Andy Beyer, I'm sure Andy Beyer was like, "Who the heck's George Mallet?"
You can hear it in his voice. He's like, "Yeah, I actually am on that same horse." George, thank you as always. Yeah. Listen to him; he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, he made me invested.
We'll see you at the track, folks.
More All Indiana next.